I wanted to put this video together to show how I take a couple of fireworks shots that have individual bursts from the fireworks and put them together into a sort of composite to make it look a lot more fantastic. You'll take a decent shot and you'll put a couple of them together and you'll come out with something that's really spectacular. And it's pretty easy to do in Lightroom and Photoshop. I'll just go through a couple of steps to show you. So here we are in Lightroom, and I found a good couple of candidates to start with. So you can see we have our first shot here, and don't pay attention too much to the background. You can see the city scape here is really dark. Don't worry about that, we'll take care of that later. Just pay attention to the fireworks at this point. So here we have two small bursts, and we're going to look at the next couple of shots. So you can see here we have a couple more bursts and then some more. So I think what we could do is take these 6 shots and put them together and make it look really spectacular. Now the first thing I'm going to do, because you want to do this before you do the stack in Photoshop, is I'm going to enable the profile corrections for each of those shots. So we're going to change the distortion and all the different anomalies that the lenses will do to your photo. And you want to do this beforehand because you can't do it after you put it into Photoshop. You can, it's just a lot more difficult. So what I'm going to do is highlight these 6 shots, and we're going to say edit and then open as layers in Photoshop. Now depending on your computer, this may be quick, it may be a little time. Also depends on the image sizes as well. So obviously I shoot in RAW, and these were shot on the Nikon D850, which are very sizable RAW files. So they're about 45-50 megs a piece, and we're bringing 6 of them in, so it may be a little time. Okay, so all 6 have loaded into Photoshop, and you can see them over here all by the different file names. And I'm just going to see what it's set as our base layer. So this is our base layer, so that's what we're going to start off with, and I think that's a good starting point. The city is fairly well lit. Again, we'll make this look better once we have everything put together. Now, to add the additional bursts into your base layer, what you're going to do is make sure the layer's on, and then you're going to change the layer from normal to lighten. And then what that does is it takes all the lighter pixels from your top layer and puts them into the bottom layer. So you can see that we're adding the second burst of fireworks in here. It doesn't change any of the darker pixels, it only brings the lighter pixels in. You can also see that it adds this burst of fireworks off in the distance in the background, and I'm okay with that. I think it adds a nice little touch. And then what you're going to do is just keep going to all the different layers and changing them to lighten. And you can see as it adds to your picture. Now if you ever think that it's getting too busy, then it's very easy to back off. You just remove that layer. Okay, so here's with all the layers turned on, and you can see this is where we started from. So now there's one thing to look out for depending on the situation. In this situation, we were shooting on a river. So there are boats on the river, and because the time has lapsed, the boats with their lights may have moved. So they may create little streaks like you see here. So you be on the lookout for that. It's quite easy to mask these out. I'm not going to worry about it because I'm going to crop this in a way so that we get a little bit of the river and then the city and then the fireworks. So you won't even see the boats on the river here. So I'm not going to worry about that. The only other thing you want to do in Photoshop at this point, because it's easier, is if you have any pixels that you want to clone out or things that you want to clone out. Like right here I could see I have a helicopter that was circling around that added to the frame, and I don't think it needs to be there. So I'm going to add a layer, and I'm just going to choose my spot healing brush, size it about right, and then I'm just going to select the helicopter trails and just remove that because it doesn't belong there. And it takes away from the picture a little bit. So there you go, that's removed. Now I see another one down here. I'm going to remove that as well. Okay, so there we are in Photoshop. I think we're done in Photoshop. So I'm just going to exit and make sure you save. And then this will take you back into Lightroom. And then we're going to do the finishing touches in Lightroom. Okay, we go back into Lightroom, and you can see it brought you right to the image that you edited. And it's not too bad. It brings up the shadows, brings down the highlights, I think that's a good place to start. I always like to add some dehazing. Just brings a little more contrast in there. I think the highlights can come down just a tad so we can get more details in this firework burst here. I'm going to add a little bit of texture to it. And then I think the blacks might come down a little bit. The histogram's showing us that we're clipping the blacks already, but I think we're still good. So then what I'm going to do is change our crop. So remember I mentioned before that I'm going to cut those boats out, and then I'm going to bring it down so that we have the fireworks and the city in the frame, and then the fireworks off to the right third of the frame. I think everything looks good there. We got some nice detail in the city there. What I would do next is go down to our saturation, and I want to add some more saturation to the reds and the blues and probably the yellows as well. So I'm going to add about 25 of each. And obviously this is to everyone's taste, so feel free to put the slider where you like it. So we got there. I'm definitely going to sharpen. Now you don't want to sharpen every pixel, so we want to mask. And when you do your mask, anything that's white in the mask is what Lightroom is going to sharpen. So I'm going to bring it there, and that looks to be about right. We're going to sharpen the fireworks and all the lights in the city. And detail in the city, some nice starbursts with the lights from the ships in the city. And then you can call this a day. You can say, okay, I'm ready to set the rating on this and export it from there. And that's pretty much what I do with my fireworks shots. You want to try and make it not too busy, just enough to give a nice dramatic wow factor. And I hope this helps. Let me know if you have any questions.